All right, everyone. I am here with Rachel. She is a member of the Road to Remission program. Thanks so much for doing this, Rachel.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's start off with what your life looked like or your IC journey looked like prior to joining Road to Remission.
So I started having symptoms in January of 2021. Initially, chalked it up to a stress-induced UTI. Didn't really think much of it. I was dealing with a lot in my personal life at the time. But after the third or fourth gyno appointment, he was like, yeah, this isn't like you don't have any of the markers for any UTIs. You shouldn't be getting this type of pain. I can't find any infection. I think you need to see someone a little bit more versed in different situations than I am. So he referred me to a urologist who pretty much said, it's probably interstitial cystitis, which I had never heard of before. Didn't even know how to spell it. Still not 100% sure how to spell it, but we'll get there. But we have to do all of these things to basically prove that that's what it is. So I was in and out of his office quite frequently. I got MRIs. I got a CAT scan. I had a cystoscopy. Unmedicated, just like it was any old thing, which at the time I thought was normal. And that kind of carried on through the spring and summer. I was having increasing bladder pains. I was having some urgency and some frequency that wasn't really normal for me. And I was just kind of like, well, I don't know, we'll see. And then I was officially diagnosed with interstitial cystitis in August of 2021. And I was essentially told, like, yeah, you have interstitial cystitis. Here's a sheet on what you shouldn't eat, made by the makers of Elmeron, which I thought very on brand. And my urologist had given me a prescription for Urabel after I was unable to take amitriptyline. So he was just like, this is a pain med, take it, take it when you need it, follow this sheet, live your best life. So I kind of was like a little freaked out. Pretty much kind of just went about the next 2 or 3 months doing my best. I pretty much was only eating what was listed on the safe sheet that I had been given by my doctor. I also found one on the Interstitial Cystitis Foundation of America that I printed off, which was slightly more detailed, but still not really super clear. I was able to get hooked up with a pelvic floor physical therapist, which was really great. But in terms of my actual diet, I kind of was just not really, I wasn't even open to considering food if it had a trigger. I was just, no, I'm not eating that. Oh, it has onions, I'm not going to eat that. Oh, it has lemon juice, I'm not going to eat that. Oh, it has chocolate, I'm not going to eat that. And I found myself kind of getting into this really restrictive mindset, which was concerning enough for me. I have a history of disordered eating, and I started noticing the same type of patterns. And I knew what I should do, but I wasn't necessarily 100% willing to go the full mile and really commit to something. So, I was sort of I was kind of going halvesies on it. I was doing enough, but I was still, I was still drinking alcohol. I was still occasionally eating chocolate. I literally went home the day I got diagnosed and ate sushi and cried because it seemed like the appropriate thing to do. I was, still treating my pain medication like an everyday thing and just kind of figuring it out, but I didn't really know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sound like you were stuck in the elimination phase, which I see so much in the IC community. So you are not alone in how all of that went down. I think that's a reasonable response, especially with your history of disordered eating. I think that is definitely a possibility for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you ultimately join the Road to Remission program?
So to be honest, because I was thinking about this today, I don't even really remember how I found you on Instagram. I think it was because I joined one of those support groups on Facebook, like the day I got diagnosed, and very quickly after joining it left, because it wasn't a good space for me mentally. And also for somebody who like literally didn't even know how to spell the chronic illness they had been diagnosed with 3 hours ago. It wasn't like a good, like, this is what your life is going to look like kind of thing. So I just kind of went on Instagram and I was just kind of, messaging around. I liked some pelvic floor pages. And I guess somehow came across your Instagram, and I kind of followed you. I kind of like lurked, like I lurked on your posts enough before I started officially following you. And so I think it was in like early-ish November. I actually went back in our messages to figure it out because I couldn't remember. And so I've been following you for a while, and I had kind of followed other IC people on Instagram and, other chronic illness people on Instagram. And they had sort of reached out to me, but like through a DM and said, like, what's up, blah, blah, blah. And I just didn't get a good vibe. But you reached out, and I just remember you were super, like, you're just like, hi, how are you? Like, do you have this condition? And I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to figure stuff out. And you didn't, I just remember thinking like, you didn't try to like get me to join the program. You were super calm. You just said, okay, like, this is what I have. And if I can help you, let me know. And so I kind of lurked through November, and then I remember you were having sort of like a Black Friday sale. And I set up my discovery call with you because at that point I was like a week and a half away from Thanksgiving. I was stressed. My family are huge foodies. And so, having to have my family make some dietary modifications, I was very stressed about it. And I kind of just was like, this, like, whatever you're doing isn't working, because you're still flaring, you're still having symptoms, you're still having urgency. Like, it's not that you're not doing enough, you just don't know what to do. You're not doing what you need to do correctly because you don't know what that is. So yeah, I reached out to you, and I think we had our discovery call. And one of the things that I really liked about you was, during my whole like suss out phase, I appreciated that you were a registered dietitian, because I think that a lot of people can get swept up with the nutritionist versus dietitian thing. Mm-hmm. So I appreciated that. And I also appreciate, it's one thing to work with a dietitian. It's another thing to work with a dietitian who actually has the disease that you have. And I really appreciated that. I'd worked with a dietitian before, when I was younger, and I had a pretty decent experience. And so I just kind of met with you. I think I talked it out with my family for a day or so, and then just kind of was like, well, I mean, worst comes to worst, you're in the same spot you're in now in 3 months, and you might learn some stuff. So yeah, I kind of went for it. I knew it was going to be an adjustment, but at that point it was sort of like, I'm not thriving, and this cannot be my life.
Mm-hmm. So you made the jump. Now, can you talk a little bit about your time in the program?
Yeah. So the initial baseline week, that was fine. I just, ate normally, fully knowing, like, I know we had conversations that there were things in my diet that I knew were going to be a problem. Like, wine is a big thing for my family. It's a huge part of our social life. It's a huge part of like my social life with my friends. And so I kind of was like mentally preparing myself for that. But I think, 2 or 3 days into the elimination diet, it was very like, okay, you have to measure, like, I didn't necessarily measure the food, but it was very much like record what you were eating and recording the water, and, with all of that kind of stuff. That got a lot easier as it went on. And then the one thing that I actually really appreciated thinking about it was that, the weekly calls that are part of the program, I think I had signed up and everything, and I was intentionally starting my program on like a Monday or a Sunday. And you had like sort of invited me to the calls before that week previous. And that was actually really, really helpful because I was pretty freaking nervous. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And I remember going to the call and just listening to them talk. And it was okay, like, I don't know what the heck what is going on. I don't know what I'm really doing. But these women are already like in the program. Some of them have completed it. And looking back on it now, like the dietitian information was incredible, but having access to those calls and the group is worth the price of admission alone. For lack of a better term, like that is just, it's so helpful. Even if it's just a quick, like, hey, my birthday is coming up. What kind of cake mix is decent? Or, I remember like, why can't we eat lima beans?
Yeah.
Didn't know that was a thing. But that kind of a thing, just having like those questions that you're like, oh, maybe I should ask this, maybe I shouldn't, what can I say? So just having access to the support group, and then also just like having access to your knowledge as well. I don't think I had a lot of issues in the elimination, like during the elimination diet. I had a couple of things that flared me, but I think it was more like I've kind of discovered that I can't do a lot of like really heavy spices. So like really heavy salt doesn't really work for me anymore. I think it was stuff like that, but even just being able to be like, this is what I ate. Like, is this okay? Like, it's not necessarily like looking for approval, but having someone to say, you're getting the right nutrients, you're getting the right vitamins that you need, and you're doing this correctly at the same time. Because I remember when I was in after the elimination diet phase into the testing, I hadn't eaten fruit in months because the fruit that I was eating, it wasn't IC friendly. So I just stopped eating it. It's like having that to say, this is something that you can do when you're doing this correctly is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think it gave you peace of mind. And I think that's a really important thing in regard to that mental piece. I think that's so important when going through all of this. So I think having me in your corner and having the rest of the program and the community to answer your questions or back you up, give you the support you need, I think that's just so essential, just moving through all of the phases of the elimination diet.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say are the top 3 things that you learned through this program? So whether that be about you, just in general, about nutrition, IC, what'd you learn?
I would say one of the most beneficial things that I've learned, I've never been a huge fan of vitamins. I buy them. I tell myself I'm going to take them. I buy the pretty pill container and then I don't refill it after like 2 or 3 weeks. So I really appreciated the lectures that were available on Teachable, particularly the ones about the vitamins and minerals and like the foods that you can eat to get those. Because I felt like that was really interesting to me. And it was like for somebody who, just doesn't like vitamins, or for somebody who, cannot swallow that, like literally swallow a pill. I thought that was a really interesting lecture. I had not given any thought to any of the subtypes. And like thinking back on it now, I had like compatible was the word I would use, like symptoms for a couple of years. Like I have TMJ, I have chronic back pain, I've had some other issues, and I can kind of pinpoint when those started. So kind of learning the link between like trauma, for lack of a better word. I don't necessarily think that fits in my situation, but like some type of physical situation that is an onset of symptoms that later turn out to kind of match up with IC. I thought that was very interesting. And the subtypes too have been super, super interesting just to kind of learn about. And then also just kind of in general, like a new way to approach things. Like before, if I saw a recipe with like onions in it or lemon juice, I would just not eat it. I pretty much was eating strictly out of the like IC recipe booklet that you have. And I definitely think one of the things that the program has taught me is that, you know, if you understand your triggers and you understand like what causes you to have issues, you can work around those and still be able to eat the foods that you like. Like, you know, I can, oh, okay, well, I'm not really sure if onions work for me, but shallots do. And shallots and onion have kind of the same flavor profile. So I can use that. Or I'm able to have small amounts of like lemon zest as opposed to the juice, that kind of a thing. So just learning how to make like swaps that I like feel confident with too as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of your symptoms, you know, how different are they now that you are, I don't know, 5-ish months into the program? Like, how different does that look?
It's pretty different. I went from basically taking the max amount of pain medication every day, which was 3 pills, sometimes 4. I now take maybe 1 or 2 a week. If I go out to eat or something, I'll definitely have some extra, that kind of a thing. But I've drastically cut down the pain medication, which was one of my goals starting the program, because I was aware that I was probably leaning on it a little too much. The burning is almost, if I follow what I know and I, don't decide to kind of go have a nice time or whatever, like most of that, the burning's almost pretty much gone. The back pain is definitely less. And I think in terms of symptoms, those are the big ones, but I also feel like I know so much more now and I'm a lot more confident. Like I can have conversations with people in my life about it. And I can, I felt much more empowered going to a pelvic floor physical therapist and explaining, this is what's going on with me. And this is why I feel like this is a logical step. I remember I had my follow-up with my urologist in, I want to say December or January. And I said, I found this program, I found this dietitian that I'm working with. And like, we kind of just, these are all the things that I've been doing. And he basically was like, yeah, like good. That's great. Which I just feel a lot more empowered. And I feel like before, like I felt somewhat confident, but like not really. And I just feel a lot more like I was very kind of all over the place mentally. Like before I joined the program, I was just like, okay, we're never eating yogurt again. We're never eating lemon juice again. My favorite food is Caesar salad. That's never going to happen. Like that kind of a mindset. And now I'm just like, one day we'll get there, we'll figure it out. So it's just a lot more of I think I'm in a much more positive place than I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on that note, like what foods and beverages have you found that you can tolerate that you didn't think you could before?
Soy sauce, which I loved sushi. So we're still kind of working our way through that. But the soy sauce was big. Probably the biggest one for me was alcohol, specifically white wine. It was just kind of, it was a non-negotiable for me to a certain sense. Like I was just like, I've had to change, I can only have 1 glass and I can't have this certain type. And so that kind of a thing. I've also found a couple, like pre-leaf helps and that kind of thing. A big thing for me was fruit, because I was pretty much only strictly eating strawberries and mangoes before. So I can do blueberries, I can do bananas, I can have a little bit of chocolate every once in a while. Coconut is great. And I think I can do cooked onions. I accidentally ate them like a week ago without realizing what I was eating, and I didn't have too much of an issue. So my next big one is yogurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you're adding so much variety in your diet, and I'm sure you're physically feeling a lot better, in terms of energy and just.
Oh yeah. I mean, before, like,
You weren't nourishing your body.
no. And like, I say this as a joke, and you can cut this part out if you don't think offense, but like, I lost weight that I needed to lose in a healthy way. And I feel like I'm much better at picking better choices to nourish my body in a way that works better for me.
Yeah. No, I love the way that you framed that. I think that was really great. We're keeping that.
Oh, good. I was like, how do I say this in a way that doesn't make it sound like all I do is like this? No, I got rid of those 15 pounds I've been trying to lose for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, which I guess is what happens when you stop eating ding dongs. Not that I ate those, but like, processed type stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So that's great with all the foods, and it's definitely still a process, but in terms of non-food wins, like what does that look like? What are things in your life that you're able to do now, or do more confidently now than you maybe couldn't before?
I think non-food wins for me would be more on the like mental emotional side. I didn't necessarily have a lot of like physical limitations. I never had an issue where like I wasn't able to sit, or long drives I don't do super well on, just because I have back pain from some other issues, and then compounded with it being a symptom of IC, I have to kind of be careful about that. But for me, I think it was more just kind of mentally getting myself into a space where it's not a doom spiral. Like, yes, this is a chronic illness. Yes, I'm probably going to have to explain this to people, including medical professionals at some point in my life, but like, it's not a life sentence.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to get there, which is part of the reason why it took me a while to kind of take the plunge on the program. Because I kind of started, realizing like you can't live your life like this. Like, you can't live your life being like, I can't eat that. 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 That's just not, it's just not effective, at least not the way that I want to live my life. And so I felt like one of the biggest wins was being able to be more open about what I was going through and what I was dealing with and the symptoms, and kind of explaining what was happening, to my family, to my friends, to my boyfriend. I was able to kind of have better conversations, which I think is just a skill that anyone should have when it comes to their health. You should never feel like you don't know like what's going on with you. And I also just felt a lot more like, not necessarily empowered, but like I felt better with like having the group and knowing like, oh, I can go to a call and speak to this person. Because until I was diagnosed, I didn't know this disease existed. I didn't know anyone with it. Come to find out, there's someone in my life that I've known since I was a kid, that is familiar with it as well, which was interesting. And I just liked having like this core group of people who get it, because not everybody does.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest things about the program is that you build these real relationships with people all across the country and even the world. And I think that's so amazing. I really do.
Yeah, I definitely love the diversity just in the people, the people in the group, where they live, some of what, the different, I think one of the tough things about this, and I struggled with this, and I still kind of struggle with it a little bit, is, it's not, not everybody can tolerate the same things, which is tough, but at the same time, I don't like it, but it's like, okay, if she, she thought she couldn't tolerate chocolate, and I didn't think I could tolerate that either. And then she found this one type that worked for her. So maybe it'll work for me, that kind of a thing. It's definitely a little bit more of like open information that I think is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who is on the fence about joining the Road to Remission program?
So the first thing I would say is just take a really big stock of your life and just say to yourself, like, what's missing? Because there's going to be something missing on some level, whether it's, you're not confident about the food that you're eating, or you're not, emotionally, you're not sure how to navigate certain conversations, whether that be with like your family or a partner, or you just don't know what to do. And then I would just, because one of the things that I said was, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is nothing. I learned nothing from this, and I'm in the same place that I was, but at least you tried. Definitely, follow you on Instagram if you're not doing that already, on Instagram, excuse me. Because I think you get a really good sense of not only the program, but who you are as a professional and as a person, which I really liked, because I think one of the cool things is that you are so involved that we don't really like, there's not really an option to not include aspects of like who you are outside of it, which is nice, because it helps me relate to you a little bit more. But I definitely would say, don't be afraid to reach out. The worst thing that can happen is you wasted a 30-minute phone call and you don't think it's for you. But like, I would say probably joining the program is one of the best things I've done in a year, and almost a little over a year since I got diagnosed, just because if I didn't, I would probably still be like sitting in my kitchen eating chicken, brown rice, and broccoli for every single meal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, like, there's nothing wrong with that. But
not
I definitely
sustainable long term.
Yes, that was the one thing too, was when I joined the program, I had been basically doing my version of an elimination diet, which is not the correct version, I will admit, for like 4.5 months. And you were like, yeah, you're really only meant to be on that for like maybe a month. And I was like, okay, well, we have already messed up. This is already teaching me things.
And you were skipping meals, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I knew I was doing it. I knew I shouldn't do it, but I also didn't necessarily, looking back, I don't think I had the correct tools to make confident choices that were A, something appealing that I wanted to eat, and B, like nutritionally adequate. So I was making a conscious decision to not eat, because I would rather not eat and not have a flare than eat something and flare. But now that I understand that concept, and I understand why that is happening, I make different choices, and I actually make it a point to make sure that I, eat all the meals, or if I don't, for whatever reason I didn't eat breakfast, I'll get a snack at 10 or 11, like that kind of a thing. Which I'm very happy that I'm sort of getting out of that phase that I was in.
Yes, I love it. The last question, do you feel the program is worth the financial investment?
Absolutely. I have to admit, I was a little bit skeptical.
I think it's a fair reaction. I think in this day and age, there's a lot of people that like try to sell you things. It may not work.
Yeah, it was definitely not a difficult pill to swallow, but I was kind of surprised by the cost. However, after going through the program, I mean, if nothing else, the lectures on Teachable are worth the price. Like, the stuff that I learned from those, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, yeah, yeah. And then if you combine that with basically your like one-on-one attention, and the access to the Facebook group that's like lifetime, like it's absolutely worth the price. And I had conversations in my life about, like, I think this is something I want to do. This is worth it to me, because at the end of the day, like, you're spending, like, you're bettering your life. It's not like you're buying, a handbag.
You're investing in your health.
Yeah, you're investing in your health, you're investing in your mental, emotional well-being, and you're investing in the rest of your life. I absolutely believe that the price of the program is worth it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for answering all of my questions. I think this will help the next person, not have all of those doubts and feel like they might be getting scammed, which I don't ever want to come off that way to people.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. I am going to end this interview now. If I could find the stupid button, I can never find it.